I understand everybody's here today to learn more about the apprenticeship program that we are starting in September for our Senior Leaders Apprenticeship program. I'm not going to read through all of the slides, but we will share these and you'll be able to read them at your leisure. Best Practice Network have been around for a number of years, working in supporting schools and educators with various training programs. And we're one of the leading providers of EYITT, NSENCO, HLTA, and of course the NPQs. We have been delivering apprenticeships for the last, well, since last September, when it became very evident from our partners that the apprenticeships were really needed to deliver NPQ programs through schools' levy programs. And it's been received incredibly well, but everything has changed in the last year for both the apprenticeship programs and for the NPQs. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. Best Practice Network are part of a wider group, and everything we do is about schools and supporting children through us supporting you. We have a range of programs and we have a very large number of candidates. We're now working to align everything to the DfE golden thread of CPD. Presently, we have some gaps along the way, and we will be looking as we go forward to reduce any of the gaps in this so that we can support a teacher right from the initial teacher training through to being an executive leader. We very much have a school-led model. We work in partnership with local authorities, teaching school hubs, multi-academy trusts and schools groups to design, develop and deliver our accredited training programs. And this includes the apprenticeships. So everything that we do, we have a look at it, we come up with our ideas, we feed those out to our partners, and we work together to deliver the best programs that we possibly can. And everything we do is all about quality. So what is Leadership NPQ? The NPQs are qualifications for aspirant middle leaders through to executive leads. NPQs have been around for some time and have always been the gold standard required and wanted, really wanted within schools. The current NPQs will no longer be running from September, and they have all been rewritten and there have been some significant changes. So for those of you that aren't aware, the new NPQ programs look like this. So if we start at the bottom and work our way up, so there is the NPQ Executive Leadership. For those who are or aspire to be executive leaders with responsibility across more than one school. The NPQ Headship, obviously for heads or aspiring heads. The NPQ Senior Leadership, for those who are aspire to be senior leaders leading across the school. These will all be familiar to you. The top three are then replacing what was the NPQML. So we have the NPQ Leading Teacher Development, those who are aspire to lead the development of other teachers. The NPQ Leading Teaching, for those who aspire to lead teaching in a subject, year group, key stage or phase. So very specific, this one. And the NPQ Leading Behaviour and Culture, for those who or aspire to lead behaviour and culture and or pupil wellbeing. So now there are these specialist NPQs to support alternate career development. Assess school improvement projects have been replaced with practice-based formative and summative assessment tasks. Behaviours don't feature in the DfE frameworks, although many have been embedded. The DfE scholarship funding criteria is linked to the percentage of pupil premium, and there's a greater focus on practice-based activity and participant context. And they will look something like this. All of them have the same areas: culture, behaviour, professional development. All of these run across all of the new NPQs. And they will be delivered through blended learning models of online courses, face-to-face, work-based practice applications, performance coaching, quality feedback. So this is the NPQH, and you can see it runs in a circular fashion, that each core, you start, you work through it, and then you get on to the next domain. Explain that a little bit more clearly. The NPQ Cyclical Learning Pathway. At the beginning, we will do a skills audit, develop your professional profile, and review with coaching and mentoring. And then at the beginning of each domain, there will be a face-to-face session to introduce key concepts and research from the content area, preparing participants for online study, defining focus of practice-based activity, and then again, the review and refine the needs and uploads to the coach mentor, who becomes a critical part of these. Then there are 3 weekly units, and it's completing a minimum of 3 formative activities from across the units. So there is some choice in here, and completing 1 overall learning reflection. And again, back to that coaching mentoring piece. Online courses, selecting formative assessment tasks and completing them over a 4-week window, which will be dictated to us by DFE. And then at the end, refining the professional profile and that review with the coach mentor. So you're saying, she's telling me everything about NPQs, but this is supposed to be about apprenticeships. So what's an apprenticeship? Apprenticeships are work-based training programs that are designed to help employers train people for specific job roles. Apprentices get a paying job with valuable training while they work towards a nationally recognised apprenticeship standard. And importantly, an apprenticeship can be for new or existing staff. So every applicant that we have so far on an NPQ apprenticeship programme, whether that be for the senior leaders or for the middle leaders, have actually all been existing staff. So it's changing culture somewhat in understanding that an apprenticeship is for anybody at any stage of their career. An apprenticeship start at level 2 and go all the way up to level 7. So last year and the years before, Best Practice Network identified the need for schools to have access to high quality apprenticeship programs. This mainly was in order to be able to use their levy rather than their CPD funds to pay for these programs and to support their staff as best as they could. And we started with these 2 programs, which was the same apprenticeship with an NPQSL and an NPQML. And now we're moving on to the next stage. So why do a dual qualification rather than just the NPQ? This is basically how the NPQ will be run in blue. So there's face-to-face, online study, formative assessment tasks, coaching, repeated termly. Enrichment activities, including learning communities and expert-led webinars. So there's a program preparation, program development, and summative assessment. For the apprenticeship, we wrap the NPQ up. So everything that is taught on the NPQ will be taught in exactly the same way to the apprentices. So nothing will be missed at all. And all of our apprentices become part of the various NPQ cohorts and groups and making all those connections and working in the same way. For the apprenticeship, we cover what are known as knowledge, skills, and behaviours. So the skills and behaviours are the majority of what you're doing in the workplace, in your everyday job, to show how you're learning to do tasks in the workplace every day. So at the beginning, there is in-school induction and induction webinars, and then it's mainly a matter of building your portfolio. This is an important portfolio of evidence that is delivered to the endpoint assessment organisation at the end. So it's taking the evidence that you are demonstrating whilst on the NPQ and putting your best evidence into a portfolio. There are monthly, 4-weekly online and in-school review meetings. So every 4 weeks, you will have a dedicated apprenticeship tutor who will meet with yourself to work with you on how to build your portfolio, any questions you've got, to do observations. They could be recorded observations, to discuss how you're getting on, how we can help you, and also meetings with the employer or your mentor. So it's usually every 4 weeks, it's online, and every 12 weeks, we would come out to the school and meet with you and your mentor face to face. Your apprenticeship tutor is also there all the time to support you. You will have a portfolio on BUD where you add all your work and any inquiries, your skills scans, your initial assessments, everything that you do is in one place on BUD, and you and your employer can always see that at any time and see exactly how far you've got. For the apprenticeships, there is some additional content around knowledge pieces, and this is all really relevant additional learning that looks at the wider job role. So it is not just looking at your role within a school, but it's looking at, for example, the operations departmental manager. It's looking in greater depth in budget writing, things that are maybe not covered so fully in the NPQ, but are necessary and will really help you within the position you're in at the moment and as you go forward. At the apprenticeship, there is a gateway agreement meeting. This is where tripartite meeting where the apprentice, their employer, mentor, and the apprenticeship tutor get together and say, yes, everything has been signed off. They've done a really good job. We're happy and they're ready to go through to an endpoint assessment. And that is carried out by an independent endpoint assessment organisation. So an overview of the NPQs, all of them, with the apprenticeships for the NPQ and EL and the NPQSL. So for the SL, it's an 18-month program, whether you're doing the standalone or whether you're doing the apprenticeship. And for the apprenticeship, there is up to 5 months for an endpoint assessment. Obviously, you don't have to wait 5 months, but there is an allowance of up to 5 months. Preparation and induction. There's the preparation and induction with the NPQ and also with the apprenticeship. This is so that the apprentice and their employer mentor are really clear on the individual learning plan, what you want to get out of it, how you're going to do that, what support you need, and also the wider pieces on, because it's an apprenticeship, British values, prevent, cybersecurity, safeguarding, health and safety. There are further checks. So as I said, we've got the face-to-face events going on for the NPQ. So you've got 4 days of NPQ face-to-face, and then you've got the reviews, observations and support with your apprenticeship. Online course study and additionality dependent on your individual learning plan of what more you need to learn, that is supported through the apprenticeship. Performance coaching, in-school practice application of learning, continually building that portfolio, summative assessment, and for the SL, there is a project proposal. So the project has gone from the NPQ, but it is still in the apprenticeship, where it's an up to 4,000 word project proposal, taking everything you've learnt on the program and saying, this is what I do to turn it into a good and meaningful project for my school, that, etc. The total learning hours for an apprenticeship, we have 20% off the job training, but I'm going to go into that a little further along. The additionality of an apprenticeship. I don't really want to read this all out loud, but I'll summary it and let you have a chance to read. So for an apprenticeship, it's about doing everything that's on the NPQ, but more importantly, It's about preparing you for the demands and rewards of, this one is the Senior Executive, the SL. And it's bringing in every element that either has or has not been thought about in order to be able to do your job to the best of your ability. So Senior Leader, again, as you can see, it's an 18-month plus typically 5 months of the endpoint assessment, but that's up to you. You get that nationally recognised Level 5 Operations Departmental Manager Apprenticeship, the DFE NPQ, and it also aligns with recognition by the Chartered Management Institute, where you'll be eligible to become a full member, or the ILM, where you'll be eligible to become a full member of the Institute in Leadership and Management. This has come from the DFE, the role of Senior Leader. I'm just going to pause and let everyone have a chance to have a read through. The curriculum for the NPQs has been written very much like a national curriculum. And we have had clear guidance that it must be laid out exactly and deliver exactly what the DFE have written in. So the Senior Leader, on-programme training and development completed, Level 2 functional skills, maths and English achieved, or proof of exemptions such as GCSE. All apprenticeships include maths and English, depending on the level. We have a number of Senior Leader apprentices with us now who couldn't find their certificates. They were lost too long ago. There are certain exemptions that we can find. And if we can't find an exemption, then we would support on a one-to-one basis for maths and English in the apprentice on our programme and take you through those qualifications. And the portfolio of evidence that's gathered during the apprenticeship. So the gateway, employers satisfied the apprentices consistently working at or above the level of the occupational standard. And all of the occupational standards are freely available for anybody to see on the websites for the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education. Portfolio of evidence to underpin the professional discussion. So there's a discussion at the end around that portfolio. And the project proposal subject, title and scope would agree between the employer and between the endpoint assessment organisation. And then they continue to support the apprentice in preparing for the assessments we will, and DSW, who are our endpoint assessment organisation, are very, very organised, and they administer the 2 assessments that together form the endpoint assessment. Everything we do is through a blended learning model of diagnostics, dedicated tutors, face-to-face training, one-to-one coaching and mentoring, reflection, and personal study, online courses and events. Entry requirements, there are no age restrictions for apprenticeships. My oldest apprentice I ever had was 69. You do need to have 5 GCSEs at grade C or above, and we've discussed the English and maths piece. Have to be paid a lawful wage. You cannot contribute towards the cost of an apprenticeship in any circumstances. Really important one, significant new learning must be required. We ask all of our applicants to go through an initial skills scan, which is really a tick box exercise of saying, have you got knowledge, experience, significant knowledge, experience of any of the elements, any of the criteria? And if there is evidence of such, we would exempt you from the programme. There is obviously only so much we can exempt, because otherwise it becomes that we're not actually allowed to deliver the programme. And there are residency conditions, mainly around having been in the UK for the last 3 years. Application and onboarding is done through our website, and we also support those employers that want to advertise these positions and bring in new staff to carry out these roles, and we advertise those on the National Apprenticeship Service for them as well. Off-the-job training. Off-the-job training is the usual question of how can I possibly do 20% off-the-job training? 20% off-the-job training is mandatory and it must be evidenced, and we evidence that through our portfolio. For every activity that you do on the portfolio, there is a certain number of hours that have been attached to it. And when you can complete the activity, then it's a matter of meeting with your apprenticeship tutor, and they will ask you, did it take this long? Did it take longer? Did it take less? And there is continually a bar you can see of exactly where you've got on that. The amount of off-the-job training is based on the number of hours the apprenticeship is contracted for. So it does vary by learner. To allay the fears of many people around the 20% off-the-job training, our program manager, who used to be an executive head, has written a couple of slides explaining what off-the-job training means in the reality of being in a school. And I learned quite a lot from this, I have to say. We will send these all out to you. But the interesting part for me was the school closure time, the teachers' entitlement to leave and holidays. And actually these pieces have been really useful for sharing with potential apprentices and employers. And we have had no feedback problems whatsoever with off-the-job training. Off-the-job training is anything that is bringing in new learning. It can be having a cup of coffee. It can be having a chat in the corridor. It can be watching somebody else do something. It can be going to a meeting that you've never been to before. It's all about new learning and anything that involves learning new skills, knowledge, and behaviors. Online delivery. Everything for the apprenticeship is on Bud. And Bud is a very clever system that does everything from the sign up. And the sign up will go from a simple application form to us arranging to have a meeting with you, a phone call, a video meeting, where we'll tell you the sorts of criteria we need at the beginning, proof of ID, your GCSEs, etc. And then meeting with us to check that you understand everything that's going to happen, to get those documents off you, and to complete the onboarding process. Bud then works right the way through your e-portfolio system to your certification at the end, and all of the funding process is done in there as well. We use Teams a lot rather than Zoom, so apprenticeship tutors are always available for Teams meetings, and Canvas is our learning platform. So all of the materials that you require, that you need for either program, are all on Canvas. So a wider piece, we are starting in October. The DfE have pushed back the start of the NPQs, so now they will be starting in November. So October will be about inductions. For apprenticeships, we're planning the EL and the SL apprenticeships start in October. And then the headship apprenticeship, we won't be starting for some time. And we will be looking at, for next spring, the leading behaviour and culture and the leading teacher development. It is unlikely that there will be an apprenticeship programme for leading teaching. Right, thank you. And I think I'm slightly early, my whistle-stop tour of apprenticeships. Do I have any questions, please?
Hi, Tracy. We did have one in the comments box from Tom. He asked about the coaching for apprentices. Tom, you might want to elaborate there if you want to ask Tracy.
Yeah, I got lost about slide 2, so I was trying to follow through, but I found it quite difficult in some of those slides. In that you mentioned first of all that there is a difference in the NPQ route, which I'm assuming is the school-funded route versus the apprentice, which is therefore fully funded. So I'm assuming what you're saying is that the 20% on the job training is specifically for the apprenticeship and not for the paid route.
Yep.
So there is no need, if we go for the paid route, to release them for 20% of their working time, albeit you would want to release them for time. I get that.
Yes, yes.
Now,
but it's not about releasing anybody for 20%, because this as an apprenticeship, you're doing that learning as part of your job. So a lot of the time it's not releasing for people for time. It's okay, right, what are you doing today? When are you learning something new? And it's about learning on the job. It's not go away for 20% of the time.
Because often the people doing these are non-teaching based doing the job. I mean, anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
I get that. So you, on this one, for example, you put performance coaching is available during the paid route, but not for apprentice.
No, it is for everything. It's just there isn't anything additional in the apprenticeship.
Right. Okay. So in both cases, it takes approximately 18 months to complete this. And okay. I guess the main thing that I'm struggling with is that you put up a slide about the DFE. What the DFE suggested should be covered as part of the NPQSL, or I think it was the next slide on, or it was a description that said DFE. And that one there, DFE NPQSL Framework 2020 reads incredibly comprehensive on a very quick scan as to what is covered. But then you've also in your talk referred to a lot of additional elements that are covered when you go through an apprenticeship route. And I'm trying to work out, that looks pretty thorough at the best of times.
We have picked these apart to the point that for the SL, there were 11,000 cross-mapping points.
What does that mean?
Yeah. But right, where's my additionality slide? That will be there. There are some pieces in there that in the NPQ are not as in depth or as they could be. And some there, for example, corporate social responsibility in the EL is not in the NPQ. Health and safety legislation, human resource management. There are some things that are in the apprenticeship that are not in the NPQ, and although the NPQ is very good and very in-depth, there are still other bits that if you wanted to be a manager and in the broader sense, and certainly outside of schools, you're going to get more information from being that in doing that apprenticeship. But also in schools, there are just pieces that we've spoken to a variety of senior leaders and executive leaders who said, I needed to know that. I didn't know how to do a full budget. So there might be a bit in the NPQ about budgeting, but not to the extent that you could have been doing your operations planning as in-depth as we see it being necessary.
Having been ahead for 7 years, I suspect there's loads I don't know that would be covered in this. And final question before I let everyone else have a go. On the NPQH, you mentioned that it is for existing heads as well as new heads. And when I did my NPQH, there wasn't one single existing head. It was all aspiring heads. Has that emphasis changed, or has it always been there?
As far as I'm aware, it's always been there.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly, as long as the old ones that
it was always the requirement to go and apply to be a head rather than something you do when you were a head.
I don't know, but that wording hasn't changed.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi Tracy, we had another question. We had, who can be a mentor? And what did you say the start date can be for the NPQSL apprenticeship?
Okay, so who can be a mentor? A mentor can be anybody within your school who is kind of one level up or has the experience and the time to mentor you. So somebody that you can learn from. So for the senior leader, it could be a head, it could be a deputy head, an assistant head, a senior manager who's already got a similar qualification. As we work our way down, if you were, and obviously for executive leader, it's slightly more interesting. As we work our way to the other programs, it could be that somebody who is on the Senior Leader Apprenticeship could be mentoring the leading teaching behaviour, which will be brilliant, because then everybody understands apprenticeships and they're working with each other on it. And sorry, the second part of the question was, when does it start?
Yeah.
Right. So the delivery part for the NPQ and the apprenticeship will start in November. The onboarding and induction activities will be in late October. We're planning at the moment.
Okay, and then we had, what would the impact of switching employer in the middle of the apprenticeship be?
As long as your new employer is happy for you to carry on being an apprentice, there's no impact whatsoever. Well, it's a contractual arrangement that we would have to contract with your new employer and sort all the paperwork out. But as an apprentice, you wouldn't notice any difference.
Got another one here. Can the NPQSL still count as credits towards a master's?
Yes. And I can't remember the details, but there are further details on our website about that. But yes.
Any other questions? You don't necessarily have to put them in the chat box. If somebody wanted to take themselves off of mute and ask, that's fine. I think that might be a wrap, Tracy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
If anyone has any questions after the event today that they think of when they're thinking about the session later on or tomorrow, then feel free to message us and we'll get back to you quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.